A big-time rebound for the Utah Hockey Club with a win over the Calgary Flames here tonight. Is it the start of something bigger, or is it just a nice little turnaround? Robyn and I will discuss when we come back. Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast starts right now.
You are Locked On Utah Hockey Club, your daily podcast on the Utah Hockey Club, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for making us your first listen every single day when it comes to news, notes, information, all kinds of fun stuff on the Utah Hockey Club. Tom Callahan, former NHL voice, Robyn Leano, longtime team correspondent, covering the Utah Hockey Club for you. We appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. Big win tonight. Big, biggity big, and biggity big. Robyn, they needed this. They absolutely needed this.
Absolutely needed this, Tom. We've been looking at it, and after what happened against San Jose, we're thinking, all right, what kind of game are we looking for? I think a win like this is exactly what you needed. A 5-1 win over the Calgary Flames is, I think, I just got looking at the text chain from our Insider Text Club members. So, by the way, join that if you're not already. Caden, one of our insiders, texted, "This is just what the doctor ordered," and I'm like, "Yeah."
Hard to argue with that statement, and it's nice that, as you say, 5-1, there's a lot to like from this game. We're going to get into talking about that. There is a lot to like and not a lot to not like. But remember, coming into this game, we were talking about it yesterday, that these two teams were both going in the wrong direction. They were both riding losing skids. Calgary, second game of a mini 2-game road trip. They went from Vegas to Utah. So, they had lost 3, Utah lost 4. Something had to give. What was it going to be? Which team wanted it more? Calgary was an early season surprise. Utah was an early season surprise. Very similar storylines, I think, for these teams. And coming into this game, it really could have gone either way for either one of them. But in the end, when we were talking about those FanDuel odds, we said, hey, I think this kind of gives the nudge to Utah being on home ice, or at least it should. And by the way, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And we were talking about those odds, Robyn, and favored Utah by just a little bit, even though Utah, they scored a bunch against the Sharks, but kind of collapsed. And it was the first time they'd scored goals in a while. They looked poor defensively. They hadn't been getting the goaltending, and the scoring, it kind of dried up.
Yeah.
A little bit of the same story for the Flames. So, I mean, look, forgive us for being concerned heading into this game, but it worked out.
It did work out. And I think the thing that I think a lot of people were worried about is when Utah got up as significant as they did, I think there was that worry is, okay, are they going to get conservative again? Are they going to go through all these?
There was a little breath holding there, wasn't there?
What's going to happen? And instead, we were worried about this, right? We talked about, is Utah going to play a full 60-minute game? In this one, you took a look at the final 2 minutes. Utah they were pressing the forecheck up until the final horn. That is what I want to see, Tom.
Yes, that's the team they're supposed to be. That's the team that Andre Tourny envisions them when he talks about, this is not who we are. This won't happen again. Those types of things. This is what he's talking about. This is the team they should be. And if they are this team, Robyn, they could be a playoff team, even with the injuries, even with the different things they have going on. By the way, we're going to talk about Olli Matta later on. But defensively, the guy I want to say, actually 2 guys defensively I want to call out tonight. Number 1, how about Maveric Lamoureux gets his first NHL goal? Huge moment for the youngster. I mean, he's already got a smile from ear to ear. This one wraps around his head now that he's got his first biscuit in the basket. I absolutely love it. What a cool moment.
It was a cool moment. And you see the, in intermission where Like he gets gifted his first goal, his first NHL goal puck, and you can see he's happy about that too. And I'm like,
oh,
everyone loves look. When I think in any moment, no matter what level you are, but the NHL means a lot more. No matter what level you are, when you get gifted that puck that has hey, first goal, it feels so good.
yeah, it's fantastic, and obviously, just I mean, such a joy in his everything. I mean, coming to the rink, he's just so happy to be there. Loves the game, loves playing it. You can tell he's one of the guys that feels fortunate about it. It's not a job to him. It's just he loves it. So I hope that's the first of many. I hope we see a ton more goals from Lamoureux. And the other guy I want to talk about, Mikhail Sergachev, goal and 2 assists tonight, power play goal. And you know what? When Sergachev scored the power play goal, his little celly there was almost businesslike, and I liked that because we haven't seen that from Sergachev yet this year. I think he hasn't quite felt comfortable yet. Tonight is the first game, and that goal is the first moment where I feel like he said, "Yes, yes, I feel this now. I feel this now." And I'm just doing a generic Russian accent here, but no, I seriously think that was the moment. Like you could tell, he felt like in his element there. And I think that's a great sign because if he's starting to find some comfort and starting to just play and not think, but react and allow his talent to take over, that's very important.
And I think a lot of that has to do with being on a new team, and B, coming back from an injury and trying to refine your confidence. So I think it's a mix of both, and now we're about getting close to a month into this regular season, and he's finally getting that, which is a good sign. Because there's still a lot of hockey to be played.
Well, yes, absolutely, and the important thing here too is special teams is going. Defensively, they were much better tonight. And Calgary had a lot of shots, so they weren't perfect by any means. Calgary had a lot of opportunities. But the other thing, too, is when talking about the defense, I mean, your goaltender is your last line of defense. Connor Ingram looked good. And I'm going to circle that late first period breakaway because that could have changed the momentum and the complexion of the game. Ingram makes a big save, and now Utah Hockey Club is allowed to then take a game from 1-0 to 3-1 and build a lead that Calgary couldn't quite come back on. So I really think tonight things came together well against a team that hopefully they would have, and they did. Again, one of these two teams is going to have a bounce back game, right? Well, it turns out it was Utah, and they, wowed the home fans. Tony Finau was there, which I thought was cool.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a really neat experience for this team if they're able to start coming together now. There were a lot of good positive signs, a lot of little things that they did. And Robyn, you pointed out the end of the third period too, and you could talk a little more about that. But I mean, that was a huge moment too.
It was, and I think a lot of it kind of, we can point to one moment, started things off. There was that disallowed goal that Keller had, calling goaltender interference, which you can, that's neither here or there. There was a 5-1 versus 6-1, but at the end of the day, after that, and I feel like Utah looked like they did again. They just looked like they did not take any bit off the gas pedal at all. They stayed full effort all the way through, and they were getting shots on again. Like I said, all the way up until the end, and to me, that's one of the most important things. I think you and I highlighted it on this show, and as you've been pointing out, the TV broadcast has been putting out the same points we have, and putting out getting.
I'm telling you, they're watching. We are their show prep. They're like, hey, do you want to go over the notes? Nah, I already watched Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. I got it.
It definitely does seem that way, doesn't it? But yeah, full 60-minute game. That's how you win a hockey game.
Tom's key to the game. One of my keys to the game yesterday. Yes. Harping on that one for sure. And it was much better tonight. Much better.
Definitely. We're going to get into more of the breakdown of this game. We're going to also talk a little about that Olli Matta trade and how that, what went down. We missed that yesterday morning. We're going to talk about it today, so we're going to make sure we get into that. Plus, anything else that might come our way through tonight's game. We're going to do that right after this.
And today's show is brought to you in part by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
So keep going on this episode, Locked On Utah Hockey Club. Once again, want to thank everyone for making this show your first listen every single day. We're free and available everywhere you get your shows. I want to get into a little bit, Tom, and I might as well bring it up now because I'm pretty sure I have a lot of people asking about this at this point. But the trade for Olli Matta and the impact he made in this game, and I feel like it's an important discussion to make because certainly I noticed his presence.
It's interesting. So unfortunately, Robyn, we did not quite get to the trade targets episode that I wanted to do, but that's okay. The Utah Hockey Club goes out and they make this move for Olli Matta. It was interesting to me, just getting into the precursors to this trade. A lot of teams were willing to put their guy out there and say, oh, we'll cherry pick X, Y, and Z from Utah. I saw Valimacki's name thrown around a little bit, and I don't think that's a piece that Utah Hockey Club is willing to say, no, he's not in our future. He's not in our plans. So I thought that was unrealistic. Like the Liljegren for Valimacki, Liljegren just, I don't see where he would have fit in.
Right.
And the Leafs were trying to get rid of him. He wasn't fitting in there. A couple other guys I was going to mention, and I still think might be going somewhere. Dante Fabro in Nashville is another one who I think could be going somewhere. Matta was a numbers game casualty in Detroit. Detroit had too many defensemen. He was a guy that needed to go, and he's in the last year of a 2-year deal. The AAV is not bad. So he was there available as well. Arbor Jacki, Canadians aren't getting rid of Arbor Jacki. In fact, they're looking for defensive help right now. So that one didn't make any sense to me. And then, of course, the big one that everybody have been talking about over with Columbus was Provorov. But Columbus doesn't want to trade Provorov yet. They want the market to heat up more on him. So he was not going to be on the move just yet. So really, at the end of the day, that was kind of what was all floating out there. And I know Buffalo had been rumored to be in the market a little bit, but, this particular move to bring in Matta, I think makes the most sense because a guy with a couple of Stanley Cups from his Pittsburgh Penguins days and is a right-hand shot, is an NHL veteran guy, is again someone that comes in and because of the veteran status, I think can become comfortable quickly. Fit in, doesn't need a lot of working time to get in there. And Robyn, this is someone that if you do get healthy before the trade deadline, and I don't know that Utah will, but if you do, you could flip him.
Yes, you could. Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, you said you don't, probably might not happen by that point because we're still missing some key defensemen for this team. But that said, I think the thing that I think a lot of people were thinking about is like, hey, can we get someone who can replace the kind of style that Jersey and Marino can bring us? And it's kind of hard to replace that.
Jersey doesn't grow on trees.
No, absolutely not. And Marino you can maybe, but I think the most important thing is what they described Matta as a defensive defenseman, and that's what Utah needed, right? We saw the gaps, the defensive mismatches that were happening where it would just be odd man rushes and there was no one back there easily for the back check. You need someone who can get back and can put their body out there, take the block shots, do whatever. That's what a defensive defenseman will do. And that's why Matta was brought in. And I think and to me, I consider that a pretty big pickup, especially all that Utah had to give up was a 2025 third round draft pick.
Reasonable cost, absolutely. And the other thing too, to kind of pile on to the point you're making, what you had was Kesselring being pushed to more minutes than he was, I think, capable of playing. You're stretching Cole, who, even though he was 19 minutes a game last year, like that was probably his outer limit. You don't want to push him past that. And pairing him with Lamoureux, you want, to get the youngsters some ice time. But what Matta does is more equally distribute the minutes on defense. And folks are going to look at the game sheets and they're going to say, well, it's really only a 2-3 minute difference. What kind of minute? Like to us, 2 or 3 minutes is nothing, right? We're talking real time. An NHL shift of 45 seconds is a lifetime. It is real hard work. And so if we're talking about 3 minutes, which is 4 NHL shifts a game that you're redistributing off a player's plate, especially maybe somebody older like Cole or an inexperienced guy like Kesselring or I don't even want to say inexperienced, but just someone who's not used to playing in that bigger role, that makes a difference. And I think that's what's great about Matta is he is someone who can play in the bigger role and can help redistribute those minutes. And of course, across special teams, you're going to have different needs, but I like it, Robyn, because the veteran presence once again coming in to settle some of the youngsters down is also good. And players like that are far less prone to mistakes and far less prone to issues and can jump in, make their contributions. And as you say, defensive defensemen, that's important to know that somebody on a defensive pair is going to be the one holding down the fort. That was kind of what we liked yet didn't like about a Durzi-Sergachev pair, right? You and I talked about that.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of, I mean, that was my biggest concern about that, right? Is looking at, all right, none of those players are the ones that are going to come back. Those are the ones that want to go up and try to press a little bit extra on the offensive, which is good. So we need defensemen who do that. As a reason why we call them blue liners, because they are working that blue line, working the forecheck, but you need one who's willing to work on that back as much as you can get, because if there's a single missed pass, a single missed read, whatever it might be, the puck's immediately going back the other way.
Yeah. The other guy I want to mention too from tonight, before we get too far away, we can come back to it if you still want to talk about Matta a little bit, but I do want to talk about Nick Bjugstad, his contribution out there. But just to kind of wrap the Matta trade, I mean, again, a guy you drop into the lineup, not a lot of practice time. It's basically, hey, here are your teammates, here are your uniform, go out and have fun. You're
right, but it looked like he came in pretty nicely in this very first game. Right away, looked like he fit in pretty well.
Yeah, and so that's the other part of the bonus there, bringing in a guy like that is it's just so much easier to drop of that in there.
It is, but we're going to get to the other point that you wanted to make and get some other closing thoughts about this win over the Calgary Flames. Once again, 5-1, the final score over Calgary, Utah over Calgary. We're going to get to all that right after this. And today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on all sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, Texas, and of course, even Utah. Prize Picks is the best way to get in all that extra action. They even invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect, where you can double your money, even if one of your picks doesn't hit. I've been using Prize Picks for the last month or so, and I've been really enjoying it. Got a couple of lineup wins out there, and makes me feel good when I pick all, hey, who's going to get the X amount of time on ice, over under on that time, more or less on that time on ice for a Utah Hockey Club player, whatever it might be. It's really easy to use. I recommend you guys give it a try. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you place your first $5 lineup. You don't even have to win that $5 lineup. You get that $50 immediately after you deposit that $5. Once again, that's LOCKEDONNHL. For after you play your first $5 lineup, get $50 instantly. Prize Picks. Run your game.
Well, Robyn, as we come back here off of that break, I was doing a little bit of thinking too. Oh, one thing I did want to mention on the Calgary side, I thought it was a class move by the Utah organization to recognize Michael Backlund in his 1,000th NHL game. Yep. Calgary captain. They paid him a nice little tribute. You don't have to do that, but it is the right thing to do. And Backlund, game number 1,000.
When you get up that high, I mean, like, you have to give them that level of,
yes.
A tip of the hat.
It's respect.
I think it's like, it's like the 1,000 mark, and then of course the 1,500 mark if players make it, which not very many players make it that far anymore. Very, very few make it that far anymore.
I think that's what people don't realize. When you see a guy play 15, sometimes 20 years and retire, the reason you know that player's name and you've heard his name for so long is because he is one of the exceptional few that has ever been able to do it. And I'm talking about Crosby. I'm talking about Stamkos. Players like that, their names. They've been around forever. There's a reason for that. That is the exception rather than the rule. The average NHL career lasts less than 5 years.
Yeah.
These guys don't stay up. They don't stay in. So when you reach a milestone like 1,000 games, yes, absolutely, stick taps.
Yeah, and I think that's, and like I said, it's especially more so now. I think my childhood, there was a lot of players that I grew up with, and I'm like, ooh, this player, I remember this player vividly, and how long they were on the ice for, how long they played so many games, and I'm definitely not seeing as much as that anymore, as players are focusing on, making sure they stay healthy, because the longer they get out, the longer they play out there, it takes a tax on their body, and unfortunately too, also a tax on on the state of their heads too, because lots of head impacts as well, which is not a good thing either.
Well, and that's kind of why the Marc-Andre Fleury retirement tour is going to be so much fun. Watching the Minnesota Wild, watching Fleury, I thought it was pretty cool, the little prank video they had him playing in Pittsburgh, where he's stealing the sticks in the locker room, and just stuff like that. I think that's great. One of the true characters of the game, one of the nicest guys in the game ever. But that's why those guys.
Exactly.
And so there's a reason for that. So, to have that respect is important. So I did want to talk about Nick Bjugstad.
Yes.
And I think he's added a little bit back into the lineup of what Utah was missing. When I was talking about, so getting pucks through to the net requires a couple of things. And one of the things it requires is someone willing to park in front of the net to go after rebounds and to set screens and possibly to deflect a puck, but also get whacked in the shins, get slashed in the calves, get, pushed around, cross-checked, elbowed, manhandled, and battle back. And I think that's what Bukestad is there providing. You look at the goal he was on the ice for tonight. That was that first goal by Kerfoot. You have to look at the play he made in front of the net. He's not on the scoring list of that goal. It's Kerfoot, Kesselring, Sergachev. But he's parked in front of the net. He's taken away the eyes of Dustin Wolf. He's making it difficult, and that puck goes in because he is parked where he is parked. And I think that is exactly what Utah needs more of. That example right there on that first goal.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's the thing that I hope to see more. Nick Bukestad has been back for less than a week, right? He's been great about that, mostly for as long as I remember seeing him play games. So, and he's been a really smart player, and I think the impact that he's made on this team has always been great. I hope to see more of that.
Yep. And at 32, I mean, you start to wonder how fresh are the legs, how much gas is in the tank. But, tonight, looking at his numbers, 1449 TOI, 22 shifts. It's about average. Average 40 seconds. He got a $121 where the power play time, the rest was even strength, 1328. So, you know what? If he's giving you good quality, solid minutes at 14 and a half, 15 a night, yeah, by all means, that's where you want to keep him. Some guys you do need to manage their minutes because they will want to play more and they will burn themselves out or what have you. But, I'm comfortable with that right there. And I think, again, that is what Utah Hockey Club needs more of. So it's welcome for me into the lineup. I think it's a much better feeling, Robyn, coming out of the Calgary game than going into the Calgary game.
Oh, absolutely. And I think even more so is the fact that this was a last game before a pretty important road trip. You wanted to come out with a win, a big win. I mean, any win would have been good. A win like this, I think, is going to help even more as they get on the road. That I want to kind of touch on really briefly, Tom, and kind of take a look. We kind of talked about it earlier in this week too, because we're talking about how crucial it is because you got Vegas, Winnipeg, St. Louis, and Nashville all on the road in the next over the course of 7 days.
Right.
It's gonna be a brutal stretch.
It is, and that's a tough road trip right there. So you need to get guys firing on all cylinders. You need to get the scoring back up, and they did that again tonight. But boy, this road trip is tough. It starts in Vegas, which is not an easy place to play. That's a difficult building to be in if you're a road team. Plus, Vegas is 7-2-1 in the first 10 games of the year. They're back to being Vegas. 47 goals for, which is now the most in the Western Conference. One more than Winnipeg. My 9-1 Winnipeg Jets. Vegas is playing well, and they're playing well in a lot of different aspects of their game. 7-0 at home. Also, they've already played 7 home games. That's kind of crazy. So that's a tough start. And then, as we mentioned, it doesn't get any easier for the rest of that trip. And there is a bit of travel involved. There's some Central Division rivalry involved. The other game, too, that I'm circling there, Robyn, I know they're not off to a great start. The Nashville Predators are, as of our taping here, 3-5-1. But Nashville's better than that.
Yes.
And Nashville's going to figure it out. But if they have been playing better lately, but they're still beatable for Utah. And so Utah right now, this is what's going to make Utah a playoff team versus a non-playoff team, is picking up the points where you're supposed to pick up the points, and then occasionally beating a team above you by taking advantage of circumstances. Well, you missed out on the points against the Sharks. Should have had those. But maybe they might still be Nashville, a team that is a little ripe for the pickings by the time you get there. And you would hope they are, but maybe you steal back the 2 points you lost against San Jose and get yourself back on track there.
And that's the hope. You got to make sure, and we know what this team is capable of, right? we've talked about some of the amazing wins earlier this week. We kind of took a look back at that at the Rangers game, the Utah Rangers game. Like that's like I said, what was that, Tuesday? Like that's like the blueprint.
Yeah.
That's the blueprint we want to follow.
Yep.
And I mean, I know it's hard to say we can replicate that, especially since, there is a significantly there's not significant, but there is quite the change in personnel since then. But it's a lot of the same players out there, and I sure hope that they can still work towards getting something pretty similar out there, similar efforts.
Really, this road trip, even though it's tough, so if I'm just trying to call it as I see it, okay, I don't think you beat Vegas or Winnipeg. I think you should beat the Blues, and I think you could beat Nashville. This could still be a 500 road trip, and as I tell you, 500 on the road winning at home is a playoff team. So if you go 500 on this road trip, that to me is a big get. Plus, Robyn, this team has shown it has the ability to play tough on the road, as you just alluded to, that Rangers game, but also the Islanders game. They can play well on the road in hostile environments. Madison Square Garden is a hostile environment. So I don't think Vegas is going to be too big for them. I don't think Winnipeg is going to be too big for them. I don't think Smashville is going to be too big for them. I think they will be all right. I'm not worried about that. But what I do want to see again, okay, you've played one game of 60 minutes now. But that clock resets every time you play a new game.
Yep. Got to continue to put out the full effort. And I think definitely a lot of that should be, one, again, putting that effort, and two, seeing if we can make sure you get that time management out there, because you get a player out there who's way too tired. What good is that going to do for this team?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that is on Andre Tourigny to a certain extent, to manage minutes, make sure guys are in the right place, right time, rotate guys in and out of the lineup. And that's the other important thing that he can do tonight. As a matter of fact, didn't really get to talk much about it, but Jack McBain in the lineup tonight had an assist, was 3-1 in the 4 faceoffs he ended up taking. So not bad. But by the way, Barrett Hayton with a goal tonight, but also 8-2 in the faceoff circle. Kevin Stenlund, of course, was a stud, as he always is, 12-3. And they were 59% in the draws. So I'm good with that. But that to me, it's about managing the minutes, making sure you put the guys in the right spots to be able to handle things. And by the way, tonight, guess what, Robyn, as I'm going over this, only 2 Utah Hockey Club players broke the 20-minute mark. Of course, Sergachev was number 1, 22:46. But number 2, and the only other guy over 20 minutes, Olli Matta, 20 minutes and 6 seconds. So that tells you right there how much they already trust him putting him in.
Yeah, and it also tells you, too, that as we're kind of alluding to all that, is they managed the time correctly on that. They made sure no one was getting too much. They made sure that everyone was getting, but people were getting a fair amount, enough that everyone was able to give it their full effort from puck drop to that final whistle. Just gotta see more of that, and a lot of that, as you alluded to, is on Andre Tourigny and how he's got, and how well can he manage that over the course of these next 4 games.
Yeah, and you know what I mean? Even though tonight was a 7D night, which, as we've said, he'll do from time to time.
The 11-7.
Yes, it was an 11-7 night, and Valley Mackey was 11-37, but even he didn't do anything poorly, didn't make any big mistakes, and you know what? For him to get his confidence back, playing 11.5 minutes tonight is just fine. And it worked. They found goals. They scored. They found opportunities. Yep. They made things happen. You don't always have to go 12-6.
No, you don't. And I'd say hate's strong word. As much as I have strong feelings about the 11-7,
I'm getting that.
At the end of the day, Tom, if it works, and if it helps change the momentum in a game for a team, for this Utah team, and they've done it before, I mean, I won't sell them I won't roll my eyes over and like, oh, why are they doing it? Because if it works, it works.
Well, clearly the feeling was it didn't work against San Jose. They felt they needed more at the end of that game, more defensive help. They needed fresher legs, and so
Yeah.
that's what this move was designed to do. And you know what, as you mentioned at the outset of the program, that's exactly what we saw because they were fresh to the end. They were able to forecheck aggressively. They were able to continue to pin back the ears of the Calgary Flames.
100%. Any final thoughts before we close things off on this episode?
I think I've covered it.
I think we all have to. But those that want to keep listening, we're going to have a lot more coming as we go through this road trip. Also, we're going to talk some stats for certain players. We're going to do a lot of other game notes, exclusive content too, like extra exclusive content on the Insider Text Club. If you want to get in on that and be a part of that, and also be a part of the mailbag, send us a text to 801-760-9033. That's 801-760-9033. But that's it for today's episode. If you guys like what you heard, don't forget to leave a review, like, comment, subscribe if you have yet to already. We're available everywhere you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. We're on SiriusXM. We're also ad-free on Amazon Music. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We're on X at LO_NHL Utah. I am personally at Robyn_Leano. Tom Callahan is at Callahan on air. Interact with us. Ask us any question you might have. We might answer right back or in a future episode of the Locked On Utah Hockey Club podcast. Thanks again to everyone once again for listening to this episode, and we'll see you guys next time.